Hello, ladies and gentlemen. MarauderEX here with kind of a weird rant discussion. I don't know where we're going to classify this. And I do apologize. I'm still recovering from whatever crud I managed to catch, so I sound a little bleh, and I look a little bleh. So, but I wanted to talk about this. Yesterday, more leaks about the Switch. Now this case, and I'm saying leaks, but at this point, the people who've leaked it have been pretty spot on, and from what people are saying, this is probably very accurate. And if that's the case, it's also a little disappointing. So the speeds for the Switch have been revealed, which is the CPU speed, the GPU speed, and memory speed. So looking at it, not that impressive number-wise. I can give you the specific. It has a docked and undocked, which the docked version gives a boost to GPU speed only, and that seems to be the only thing that gets a boost. But the stats are, the CPU speed is 1020 megahertz, the GPU speed undocked is 307.2 megahertz, docked is 307.2 to 768 megahertz. So anywhere in that range. And memory controller speeds are 1331 by 1600 megahertz. So that's the numbers. And looking at it, it's not what people were expecting. People were expecting a portable console that was on par with PS4. Not necessarily PS4 Pro. People were hoping portable Xbox One, because the Xbox One has a lower end GPU but a higher end CPU. The PS4's reverse that. It's got lower CPU, higher GPU. So people were hoping for a portable console. They were hoping to be able to take these AAA experiences on the go. And these numbers aren't reflective of that. That's not what people... That's not what would happen. But to be completely honest, I would be very, very surprised if we would get, a portable Xbox One that would have anything resembling a decent battery life. I mean, the tech is kind of there, but kind of not. And part of the problem is the tech could be there. Nintendo could have waited a little while and gone with the next generation Tegra chips that is being developed. But it seems like people are leaning toward it being an X1, which is possible. It's also entirely possible that NVIDIA used the designs for the X2 chip and did a custom chip for Nintendo. We still don't know. They have not released any of this information. So it's one of those things that it's disappointed a lot of people, because people are looking at it as it's not going to be as powerful as console. Well, that shouldn't be surprising. It has a portable mode. If it has a portable mode, if it has the power of a console, it's going to get crap for battery life. That's just either you're going to take a performance hit to increase battery life, or you're going to have high-end performance with like a 30-minute battery. That was the trade-off. That's how technology works at the moment. You either get really high-end capabilities with crap battery, or you compromise. Now, I was never expecting console quality, like AAA console, Xbox One, PS4, specifically not Xbox Scorpio or PS4 Pro quality, but I was expecting, decent quality. This is middle ground. Again, I'm not very technically versed with the specifics of CPU, GPU architectures. I'm just going off of what I've read on various forums of people who are much more technical savvy than me, and I've seen these arguments go either way. It's like, well, if they do it this way, it could still be, an incredibly viable machine. If they do it this way, it can be like a brick. So there's even people who are more technically versed don't agree, because the information's not there. This is all rumor, but given it's a rumor from a fairly accurate rumor mill at this point, I'd say it's probably going to be pretty close to the ballpark. So, on the upside, this will be the most powerful handheld ever. Like, it will be the most powerful handheld to be released. And that's interesting. That's a different, market that Nintendo's done, because they've never really done powerful handhelds. I hate to break it to a lot of people, but looking at Nintendo's handhelds, they're never really the most technologically advanced. They have interesting features, but they're never the most technologically advanced. The Game Boy was the first one out, and so therefore you could say it's the most technologically advanced. But then the Game Boy still beat out the Atari Lynx and the Game Gear, both of which were superior technologically to the Game Boy. They did eat batteries faster, which is probably the reason why they still beat out, because like, I can play on my Game Gear for, 3 hours, you can play on your Game Boy for like 6. Like, that's a huge... Their Game Gear 8 battery, and the fact that the Game Gear had 6 batteries at a time, that's a thing. So, but then you had the DS versus the PSP. PSP was a vastly inferior handheld. Or PSP was superior, excuse me. Cold meds, I'm going to blame that one on cold meds. PSP had a ton of power behind it. They wanted it to do a little bit of everything. It could do TV, music, movies, games. It had everything. And it had so much power behind it. And I think that was part of the reason that killed it. It had so much power, they couldn't really find a good identity for it. The games were good, but then all the other stuff was kind of mediocre at best. Why would you want to watch a movie on a screen other than the fact that you can? And at the time, you couldn't really do that with smartphones or anything else. So I get the concept, but it was a little too ahead of its time. But it was technically superior to the DS. But the DS won. And you could say that it's probably due to support. We'll get into that in a minute. And then the same thing happens with the PS Vita versus the 3DS. The PS Vita is fantastically stronger than the 3DS. The graphical quality, you can get close to PS3 quality games on the Vita. And that was part of the problem. No one wanted to develop PS3 quality games for handheld because it cost a ton, and you didn't really get to see the cost recouped, because people don't want to spend $60 on a handheld game. They want to spend like $40 on a handheld game. So that's how the 3DS beat the Vita, is because of support. And that's where people are starting to get a little freaked out about the Switch, is support. Nintendo said that there will be a lot of third-party support, which they said for the Wii U, which it dried up very quickly for the Wii U, which is why the Wii U is in the situation that it is with, in the grave. Now, if Nintendo is able to actually keep support for this, the fact that it is technologically inferior will not matter. As long as people are still developing games for it, there will be a market for it. It's just, can people get the games for it? Now, I've been sitting here thinking that if Nintendo goes the route of replacing the 3DS, just replacing the 3DS and the Wii U lines, just getting rid of that, focusing on the Switch, you've got a market for handheld, you've got a market for console. Just combine those two, kind of even things out a little bit, go from there, because they have some fantastic third-party support for the 3DS. Great third-party support. And a lot of people are saying that, and I've had this discussion with friends that, they're not going to replace the 3DS because the 3DS is a different gaming experience because it's got 2 screens. I get that. I also get that a lot of the games that are on 3DS could probably be done on a single screen experience and not suffer for it. So I think a lot of those developers could say, let's not worry about putting a second screen on, let's maybe up the graphics just a little bit, pop it on the Switch. I see that happening. And if that happens, then you've got a lot of support, because you've got a lot of the people who don't want to develop AAA titles for ridiculous sums of money. They want to develop smaller end titles for, lower overhead, more potential profit. And they transfer to the Switch. If that happens. And then there are the reports that the Soul series games, I believe it's From Software, has said that they have a Souls game working to acceptable standards on the Switch. And if they're saying that, then there's a possibility of, remastered versions of that, which is neat. That's where people are going with it. That it's if you can get certain experiences on the go, that's, you're not going to get the high-end graphics, but you can be able to play it on the go, which is a big thing these days. Because if you want a huge experience, you can play it on console, or you can play it on PC, or if you want something that you can take with you. It's different experiences, and there's a lot to it that I could ramble on and on and on about for hours. But it's really going to boil down to, if Nintendo can keep third-party support for the Switch, that is going to be the defining factor. Its power capabilities, its technological capabilities, those are going to play a role in it. But if you can get good quality games from third-party developers, not rely solely on Nintendo, because they're not going to be able to put out games as fast as people want them to, and you're also going to still lack I kind of want, a third-party game. Like, if Square puts, say, World of Final Fantasy on the Switch, that would be fun. I don't see them putting Final Fantasy 15, but, something on all of these platforms. I don't think Kingdom Hearts 3 is going to be on the Switch, but, if by whatever miracle you could, things like that are going to be a huge boost to the Switch, because you're going to have those games that are available on every platform. It's like, well, I could buy it on my PS4, or I could buy it on my Switch, and if I have to go anywhere, I can take it with me and play. Which is what I feel Nintendo is trying to aim for with the Switch, of the mobile gaming that's not mobile gaming. So it really is going to boil down to how is this going to be supported. And I'm a little hesitant now, seeing the numbers and the fact that, looking at it, people are saying it's 40% slower undocked. Well, yeah, it kind of is. But what people are, trying to point out is, if it's 1080 on the docked mode, 40% lower would be 720. If you're actually doing the pixel math, it runs to be about 40% slower. So that's, shift from 1080 to 720 from docked versus undocked. That's fine. I don't care about the tablet being 1080, because it's a tablet. I don't need it to be that high def for that small of a screen. Like, as long as it's hitting 720 and 60 FPS, I'm fine. That's me. I can't speak for everyone else, but I can see where that would be 40% slower, because looking at the math, yeah, that math does check out. So if they switch from 1080 to 720, then yeah, it could run 40% slower and not actually take a performance hit, other than the fact that you are now at a lower resolution, which on that size screen, not as noticeable. But if it's like 40% frame rate drop, then that's going to be something noticeable, and that's going to be something problematic. We've seen live action footage of the Switch now. We saw that on Jimmy Fallon, and we saw the frame rate actually very well done on the Switch, and we saw very little issues transitioning from docked mode to handheld mode. So if that's the quality of games that we're going to be able to expect from it, and the quality presentation, then I don't think it's going to be that bad. But I will say Nintendo has always put more effort into their own games on their own hardware than other people have in a very long time. Square used to put out great games on the SNES that rivaled anything Nintendo would do, but come the Wii, the GameCube, those eras, anything that they did was not up to par with what else they were doing on other consoles. So it's always been Nintendo knows the hardware, Nintendo can make the most of the hardware. Can anyone else make the most of the hardware? Is it cost effective for them to make the most of the hardware? So yeah. And then there's the possibility of, depending on what chipset that this has in the Switch, that 6, 8, 10 months down the line we could get a Switch Plus that has the newer chip in it, because people are basing that this is possibly an X1 chip, and then the X2 chips are getting ready to come out, and if it's not an X2 or some sort of custom chip, then is it going to be worth it? There's a lot to question, and I'm like I said, I'm a little more hesitant about it. I was, after the reveal, very much very much hyped about it. I was very much planning on being an early adopter about it. Now I'm a little more hesitant, but I'm going to wait until January before I make any sort of final decision, because we do have their official announcement in January. What games are going to come out? Who's actually supporting it? What can we expect? Right now it's all still rumors. Rumors aren't looking favorable, but it's only a piece of the puzzle. We can only see part of what's going on. The fact that there have been multiple third-party developers that say, yes, we've got these games working, acceptably, we're happy with it, we enjoy it, does kind of put my mind at ease a little bit. But we did hear that with the Wii U. We did hear people, or before the Wii U came out, we did hear third-party developers say, hey, yeah, the Wii U looks great, it's interesting, it's completely different. And then those same developers drop support for it very quickly. So it's a crapshoot. So let me know your thoughts on the situation. Were you really excited about the Switch and now you're just like completely blasé about it? Has this changed your opinion at all? Are you like, no, I'm still going to get it, or I still wasn't planning on getting it beforehand? How do you think this is going to compare to other consoles? Is it going to be worth it to try to compete with other consoles, or is this going to just be Nintendo continuing to dominate the mobile market and just have this be like an upgraded PSP where you can play the handheld games handheld, but if you also want to play them on the TV, we have the means to do that as well, which on the PSP really sucked. Really did. So let me know your thoughts and opinions about the subject matter. I'm going to go hopefully recover from this crud, and I look forward to hearing your comments, because I'm, like I said, really excited about this, and now I'm a little more hesitant. So, more discussion about this would help me figure out a more positive or negative stance. Figuring out, help me cement one way or another. Is this good? Is this bad? Is this acceptable? Is this recoverable? Or is this the nail in the coffin before it even comes out? I'd like to know your thoughts. So I will see you January for another Switch discussion, if not sooner, depending on other leaks. So till then, later everyone.